Derry, or Londonderry, famous for its murals, notorious for its troubles, and now celebrated in the TV series Derry Girls. I've been talking to the real Derry Girls, who, like their TV counterparts, are gutsy, funny and brave.
I'm Sinead. I was born in the Bogside in 1981, just right at the Free Derry corner.
My father was hijacked numerous occasions.
I'm the only Protestant in the Derry Girls.
And because they couldn't put the bus across the street the way the IRA wanted, they were going to shoot him.
I am a 100% Derry girl.
There's quite a lot of stick, which I get, which is part of why I love them all.
A cousin of mine and his wife and child were injured in the Omagh bomb.
My family experienced the troubles, with my father being present on Bloody Sunday and his cousin being murdered on Bloody Sunday.
That was the worst experience that we had throughout the troubles until Lyra.
Derry has been part of my working life for almost half a century, since I first set foot in the city in 1972, on that dreadful day that became forever known as Bloody Sunday.
When you think about Bloody Sunday, there's one particular image, I think, that comes to view to a lot of people, and it's the one where the bishop and some men were carrying Jackie Duddy, and the man with the cap, who seems to be behind Bishop Daly, that's my father, Liam Bradley.
It was on that day that paratroopers shot dead 13 innocent civilians taking part in a civil rights march. It was my shocking initiation into reporting the conflict in Ireland. The painful legacy lives on.
I think, Peter, you would have to go far to find a family not touched by the troubles in this town, especially because of Bloody Sunday. It stretched and reached so many homes with, you know, the fight for decades to have innocent people's names cleared.
Few families in Derry's tight-knit Catholic community remained untouched by the so-called troubles. Loved ones ended dead, fathers and sons in jail.
My first meeting with my daddy would have been in Longcash visitor room. I have memories of being up there from when I was at least 2.5, 3 years old, and he always had a lot of bars of chocolate for me. So he was the man who gave me bars of chocolate. I do remember being in the kitchen and frantic bangs at the window, and I just remember my granny saying prayers, throwing me in the ground underneath the table. And I can remember the bangs then at the back door as well. That was a guy who was on the run from the police.
It was here in Derry that the seeds of the hard-won peace were sown. This is Derry's Peace Bridge. It was opened in the wake of the Good Friday Agreement of 1998. At the time, it was a symbol of a bright new future, not just for Derry, but for the whole of Northern Ireland. But that future is now overshadowed by Brexit and the threat of violence from dissident Republicans. It was the so-called new IRA that murdered the young journalist Lera Mckee just over 6 months ago. She had become part of the real Derry Girls with her partner, Sarah Canning. For the group, this photo is very special because one of those watching the TV is Lyra.
This is the youth club. I know all the size of it. We had all gathered in here and we were watching, I think it was the first episode of Derry Girls.
All members of the group, bar one, are part of Derry's LGBT community. They're all incredibly close and supportive of each other. Lyra and her partner Sarah were warmly embraced, and Lyra soon became a very special part of the band of sisters.
She was funny, she was smart, she was intelligent.
And she was just a bundle of energy, and she had a really infectious laugh.
We joked about retirement homes whenever we were all like 70 and 80 and all waking up with dementia together.
I really fangirled her, I absolutely did. I just thought she was brilliant. She always got us together, and it was her who was organising, you know, parties and Saturday nights and things like that.
She clicked with us all so well from the start. I think her moving to Derry just cemented the fact that she was in the Derry Girl Club, definitely.
Before she came to Derry, Lera had already been recognised at the age of 14 as a talented young campaigning journalist. Even then, a rising star, she was passionate to address the alienation of young people.
It's shown me what I can do, and it's also it's mapped out my career for me. I know this is my vocation, this is just what I want to do.
The things that she wrote were so pertinent. I mean, Lera talked about the post-ceasefire babies. There was so much hope at that time when the ceasefire was signed, when the Good Friday Agreement was signed. There was so much hope that things were going to change, that there was going to be massive change. And it's been nothing but struggle and fighting for the last 20 years, albeit in a different format and Stormont.
One of the things she wrote was, "We were the Good Friday Agreement generation, destined to never witness the horrors of war, but to reap the spoils of peace. The spoils just never seem to reach us."
And that article, it just spoke to me so much before I'd even met her. We haven't seen, especially in the Northwest, we haven't seen the spoils of peace.
The Cregan estate is one of the most deprived areas in the United Kingdom, its poverty providing the soil in which the dissident new IRA has been able to grow. It was formed in 2012, followed 4 years later by its hard-left alleged political wing, Saoradh, meaning liberation. Paddy Gallagher is Saoradh's spokesman in Derry. And this is a Saoradh poster, or a poster that Saoradh has put up.
It is, yeah. It's highlighting the message that states disband or rebranded RUC, which is basically a PSNI in a different guise. A lot of people in this area, and indeed all Republican areas across Derry and the occupied 6 counties, are opposed to British Crown forces.
The police.
They don't trust them. They don't see the need for them.
Just over 6 months ago, relying on intelligence, police searched a house on the Cregan for explosives. There were concerns that an attack was being planned. None was found. A riot broke out. Lera was standing by a police Land Rover covering the events as a journalist. A gunman opened fire at the police, but killed Lera.
I was there, I was with Lera. I saw her falling and land on the ground, and I didn't believe, even right up until arriving at the hospital, that she'd been shot. I could not believe that's what happened in Cregan.
Saoradh's Paddy Gallagher was also in the vicinity on the night of the riot.
A number of people in the area came out and resisted British Crown forces, for want of a better word, and
started firing at them.
Sadly, that resulted in the tragic death of Lera Mckee.
And the gunman was where?
From footage that I've seen, it appears the gunman was around this area.
Are you surprised that nobody has been charged with the murder of Lera Mckee?
Not really, no.
Why not?
Well, people have called for members of this community to inform, but the people of this community know the life of an informer. I think judging by history, they know exactly what would happen to informers.
If they give information?
Yeah.
Saoradh blamed the police for Lera's death, claiming Crown forces had initiated the riot by raiding the house on the Cregan. It was more than her friends could take. 4 days after her murder, they decided to act to show their anger and disgust in the most public way possible.
It's Kathleen's idea, and she said that's the symbolism of the blood in their hands for what they've done. And we all agreed. We would make sure that it was done in a dignified fashion. There was nothing done that would be adverse to Lera's memory.
So we went down and we took our red paint with us and we had our gloves with us, and we walked down to William Street, and it was eerily quiet. So eerily quiet, Peter.
Nobody wants you.
I definitely must have been nervous, but the determination took over. I remember thinking to myself, nothing matters. They've murdered our friend. And that was the emotion that day. I've never felt like that before, where fear's gone. I wasn't afraid. I remember distinctly saying that. I am not afraid, let's go. Even though they were standing outside with their arms crossed, staring at us.
They being?
Saoradh, the members of Saoradh, lined up lined up around the building, staring at us.
Some were known senior dissidents. It was an incredibly brave gesture. Openly confronting them may have put their lives at risk.
She is dead. Nothing matters. Take me to court. Take me to jail. I don't care. I absolutely don't care. The rest of us is all the same. We're strong women. We're not afraid. We are not afraid.
Did that intimidate you?
I wasn't thinking about being afraid or being intimidated. You know, we can get a bigger message out here, more important message out here, if we put handprints, because that's ultimately what they have, is blood on their hands.
Saoradh's response was coldly dismissive. What effect did the murder of Lera Mckee have on Saoradh and its support base?
Honestly, I think it had a minimal impact on our support base.
But isn't that remarkable, given the horror, the universal horror that the murder had?
Well, I think there's a realisation within the Republican community that Saoradh were not involved in killing Lyra McKee. The IRA killed Lera Mckee. The IRA took responsibility and apologies for killing Lyra McKee, which I publicly asked them to do.
An apology doesn't bring somebody back from the dead, that's the reality of it, and it certainly does not remove the trauma experienced by our partner, experienced by anyone who was on the scene. There were people who were absolutely haunted by what happened to Lyra, and the cavalier attitude that surrounded the way they dealt with it afterwards. Sarah and the new IRA.
I was getting stopped in the street. I was getting text messages congratulating me, saying well done. I think it was brilliant what using the gears did. The town's behind yous. It's definitely not in our name. It's not my name.
For you, Lyra's nearest and dearest.
The world watched as Father McGill paid tribute to Lera at her funeral in Belfast Cathedral. The congregation included a roll call of political leaders from Westminster, Belfast and Dublin.
Why, in God's name, does it take the death of a 29-year-old woman with her whole life in front of her?
It was an unforgettable moment. The political leaders seemed embarrassed and didn't know what to do or where to turn. It was as if Father Martin's words had shamed them. For a fleeting moment, it seemed there was hope of a political breakthrough, but alas, it was not to be.
It was an incredibly courageous event, and when you were asked about my sermon, I acknowledged the bravery and the courage and the creativity of those women in Derry, friends of Lyra's. When we can stand together, when we can try and break some of this control.
Lyra's murder drew the world's attention to the new wave of violence festering in Northern Ireland's political vacuum. A new IRA bomber parks a car outside the courthouse in Derry. He makes his escape. People pass by unaware. Miraculously, no one is killed or injured. It was the opening of the new IRA's intensified campaign, a campaign that also continued to target police officers.
The troubles aren't over for my family, and that's because I have a member of my family who is a serving police officer, a Catholic police officer. It's strange because after the Good Friday Agreement, when we're supposed to be in a peaceful time, our house, my family home, has been shot at. Our family car has been burnt out. There has been sympathy cards sent to my parents.
Sympathy cards?
As in with sympathy during times of death.
Peace is a very, very questionable thing at the minute because, well, we know we've had Lyra's murder in the last 6 months, but in terms of paramilitary activity, I mean, it seems to be every few days here that there's a shooting or a beating, and that's not peace. It's absolutely not peace when it's paramilitary related, so.
Last year, I watched these supporters of Saoradh commemorate the Easter Rising of 1916. They recognised the new IRA's determination to resist British rule. The new IRA is believed to have a hard core of around 100 gunmen, bombers and engineers, paid between £50 and £100 a week, backed up by up to 400 active supporters.
Brexit offers Irish Republicans an opportunity to realise our first great objective, the ending of the British occupation.
With the new IRA themselves, I think initially they were on the back foot after Lyra's tragic killing, but actually they gained confidence. Thereafter would be our intelligence assessment. That's probably borne out by the rising number of attacks in recent months. Their sophistication is increasing. They have access to firearms and to explosives and to the sort of engineering that means they can make viable and dangerous devices.
A priority of the police is to stop the organisation winning new recruits, in particular from amongst the unemployed and alienated youth in deprived areas like the Bogside and Cregan and similar areas in Belfast and elsewhere.
If there are young people who are not doing particularly well at school, who really don't have too many job prospects, who haven't got a great sense of what the future's going to hold, these for me are vulnerable young people. And so the likes of paramilitary organisations who will prey on these young people, who will groom these young people, and I will purposely use the language of grooming and that whole sense of recognising and then grooming and then bringing them into the ranks to continue the armed struggle.
How do they do that? How do they recruit the next generation?
Well, it's very similar to the ISIS model, if you like, where they tend to exploit vulnerable young people. They will sell them drugs or get them into drugs and alcohol. They will influence them. They will mobilise them onto the streets to bring them into the cause.
Dissident supporters of Saoradh maintain that they and the new IRA are the true heirs of militant republicanism, commemorating the hunger strikers who have died down the years as martyrs for the cause. Their sacrifice is designed to incentivise this new generation to carry on the fight. Paddy Gallagher left Sinn Féin. He then joined Saoradh and became its spokesman in Derry. He denies Saoradh has any connection with the new IRA. Saoradh salute the men and women of violence. Many people would take it to mean that Saoradh salutes the successors of these figures, which here is the new IRA. Doesn't that imply that Saoradh supports the new IRA?
No, well, it's in reference to the ongoing struggle for...
Most people would see it in contemporary terms, Saoradh supporting the new IRA.
Well, most people around here that support Saoradh understand what Saoradh is about. They acknowledge what Saoradh does within our communities, and they know what media, British Crown forces and pro-establishment parties put out in regards to the party is false.
There's a fluidity that not every member of Saoradh, as we'd see it, would be a member of the new IRA, and similarly not every member of the new IRA may be a member of Saoradh, but there is an overlap.
I know some of these people. I grew up around some of these people in the same area as these people. The mural on the side of the wall of Saoradh is Unfinished Revolution with a rocket launcher. I don't think I can get a more simple message than that. The one on the same, it's the political wing of the army, it's Sinn Féin and the IRA in the 80s. We've seen it all before. They can't be any different because the personalities, they're the same.
Derry's Cregan estate is the stronghold of the new IRA. Here it's a battle as ever for hearts and minds. The police need intelligence and the dissidents need both tacit and active support. When they kneecap drug dealers, the dissidents claim they are responding to community concerns over antisocial behaviour.
The sentiment in the community in which they're based is one where they don't want them there, and that they're seen as people that ruin people's lives, they exploit vulnerable young people.
They also have a softer and more subtle way of winning those hearts and minds.
We've recently launched a food bank appeal. We've seen in the last couple of years the rise in the use of food banks, specifically here in Derry.
And where do these come from?
As I said, it's local people that donate the items.
Isn't this the soft, friendly face of Saoradh?
Well, you say a soft, friendly face as if Saoradh has another face. We're a socialist party. We work on behalf and for the working class communities that we come from.
If people need food banks, there's a food bank there. It's down in Springtown. You can get vouchers from your local representatives for it. You don't need to go to Saoradh to get the food bank. We need more money for the welfare system, we need more money for our healthcare system. We definitely need serious crisis intervention services in terms of mental health and drug addiction support. But Syria aren't providing those.
As a community worker, Kathleen has first-hand experience of where she believes the state is failing.
I'm not surprised that Syrian groups like Syria exist. I'm sad that the reason why they exist is poverty. To me, Syria and those groups are gap fillers. They fill gaps that the state has left.
Dissident groups like the new IRA also exercise community control through fear and intimidation. In the days after Lera's death, ominous graffiti appeared on the street near where she was shot. It was a clear message to residents. They spoke to the police at their peril.
There's an undertone of threats and intimidation that you can understand even if you were the person overlooking where that gunman was standing and pulling the trigger, and you could identify that person, how frightened you would be about putting your name to a statement and giving evidence in court.
The supreme challenge for the police is to break the wall of silence. They say some of the community have provided information, but as yet, no one has been charged with Lera's murder. Do you know who killed Lera McKee?
I think there's a groundswell of intelligence that will point us towards certain people.
Are you confident that the person who shot Lera McKee will be charged and prosecuted?
I remain optimistic.
6 months on, the real Derry girls continue to defy the dissidents, spraying a tribute to Lera on the Free Derry wall. It's now 6 months since Lera was murdered. No one has yet been charged. Does that surprise you?
It doesn't surprise me. It does disappoint me, because Lera was the kind of woman who would have said, anything can happen. Don't discount things, wait and see. So I will continue to hope that something may happen, whether it's 6 months, a year, 6 years, 10 years. I think it's important to stay focused on the hope.
Hope drives them on. Hope not only that her killer will finally be brought to justice, but that peace and the spoils of it that Lera referred to will finally prevail in Derry and in Northern Ireland.